right, well, welcome everyone to this panel on K-12 as an engine of economic development. I'm so thrilled and honored to be up here on the stage with these four fantastic leaders. My name is Nick Rodriguez. I am the CEO of Delivery Associates. Our organization's mission is to help governments, nonprofits, and philanthropies deliver better results through better implementation. So today's topic is very close to my heart. So why are we here? It's no secret that regional and local economic development is a huge priority. And that priority these days is being matched by historic investment, investments in innovative and equitable economic development. To give you just one example of that, consider the $280 billion being invested in communities through the CHIPS and Science Act by the federal government. These are the kinds of investments that are focused on tomorrow's jobs. They're in industries like quantum computing, semiconductor manufacturing, and clean energy, things like that. In order to actually unlock the potential of these investments, communities are going to have to do two things. They're going to need to actually create the conditions to deliver and create those jobs, and they're going to need to build the talent pipeline that allows those communities to fill those jobs with their own. Now, on that second piece, what we're talking about here is the fact that K-12 education systems and a deep partnership with them, between them and communities, is essential to building that pipeline. So that's the promise and the opportunity. But as you can imagine, there's a challenge. I think it's no secret to anyone in this room that collaboration is really, really hard. That actually, if you think about the historic track record, K-12 and other sectors tend to operate in silos. So that's really the driving question of our panel today. What would it take to change that? What would it take to conceive of economic development in a way that involves K-12 not just as an afterthought, but really as a driving force, as an engine of economic development? So to get us started, I'm going to start by actually asking the audience a question. So who here works in some kind of a K-12 education system in some capacity? All right, give yourselves a round of applause. Okay. Thank you for being here. All right. Who here works in a government but outside K-12, state, local, county, regional government? All right, give yourselves a round of applause, smaller but mighty group. All right, awesome. And then who here is from the private and nonprofit sectors, working alongside government but outside of it? Great, round of applause for all of you. All right. So we have all of your viewpoints, right, of this mix represented up here on the panel. Just like to introduce our panelists briefly before we get started. We have Randall Woodfin, the mayor of Birmingham, Alabama. We have Donna Deegan, the mayor of Jacksonville, Florida. We have Corban Tillemann-Dick, the CEO of Maybell Quantum, a company in Colorado. And we have Dr. Katie Jenner, the Secretary of Education for the state of Indiana. So a little bit about kind of why I'm here and why we're here. So I said I lead this organization called Delivery Associates. We specialize in helping with better results through better implementation. And through that, we are privileged to lead a program called the Community Funding Accelerator. The purpose of that program is to help communities across America to access federal funding in order to deliver better outcomes in K-12 and workforce through community collaborations like these. And so in that, we've had the privilege of walking alongside these leaders as they've grappled with these questions of how to make that kind of collaboration happen. So my first question is to our two mayors, Mayor Woodfin, Mayor Deegan. As mayors, you have that bird's eye view of looking at the whole ecosystem. You're the ones also who are often called on to set the table when it comes to building collaboration. So as you look at the work ahead of you, as you look at this changing job environment, the emerging technologies, and all these other trends, what are the biggest opportunities that you see in the push for career-connected learning from K-12 systems in your communities?
Well, look, to take it back just a little bit, I think that we have to, at least from my community, recognize where we are. We have the largest city by land mass in the U.S., 850 square miles. We have a large urban school system. And so there are young people in our community that have had great access to all the tools and the emerging tools. And there are young people in our community that, frankly, have not had that. So what I have focused primarily on since getting into office in terms of education is making sure that every student has the access to the same types of tools that they need to be successful? Are they connected to those tools? If you're part of a university system, you're very likely connected to those schools, to those tools. If you're not, you probably aren't. And we have a large number of young people who are not connected to those things. So it's about creating the partnerships that are necessary. And that's what we've tried to do. Everybody in this room represents one of those segments of population that we have brought together in a variety of ways to try to increase opportunities for students. One of the things that I'm very excited about, in addition to what we're doing K through 12, is that we want to create for young people more graduate opportunities as well. And we've got the University of Florida that we're bringing in to create a campus that will focus on really more of the industries of the future. But we're partnering with not only different educational entities, but with our business community and with our nonprofit community. On ways for employers to bring in young people to help train them up for the opportunities that exist. But they have to first know they're there, and then they have to believe that they are available to them. And that may sound fundamental, but there are a lot of young people that do not believe that those opportunities exist for them. And before we can ever get to step B, we got to check the box on step A.
Thank you so much, Mayor Woodfin.
So picking up where the mayor left off and starting with step B, I think what we did internally first at City Hall, which was we blew up the way we viewed economic development. We actually recreated the entire process, and we actually changed the name to the Office of Innovation and Economic Opportunity, IEO. But the whole notion was to center it around people. Literally before this panel, there was a conversation on the other side of that wall during the previous panel. And we were talking about you because you don't like politics. You got into this because you like policy. And the other P word came up outside, which is people. And we literally say every day we're putting people first. That includes our youngest generation. So there's a table right here. It's a mix of everything you called out. I have government folk, I have people in the nonprofit sector, and I have those in the economic space. And this is a full delegation of Birmingham. They're here to learn and listen. And then we take back what are the best practices. But in that, going back to K-12, I think about the opportunity and exposure we want to provide of all of our children. And when I peel back the layers, it's the silos that have been the Achilles of our community. All the ingredients are there. There is no shortage of philanthropic, local foundations, nonprofits, employer opportunities as it relates to business, to hire the next generation of employees. But there's a disconnect. And so I feel that my job as mayor, because your question is around opportunity, here's the opportunity. The opportunity is that not just the people you see here at this table, but people want to collaborate now. They now accept that silos hurt us. And so the spirit of collaboration is people are fully embracing. I think that is a plus. I think the other thing is we have a superintendent that wants to bring in industry and talk to employers, talk to CEOs, talk to the president of the 2-year college system, as well as the 4-year. For those who don't want to go straight into a 4-year institution, what are the opportunities we're creating for those who go straight into the workforce?
Thank you. Thank you. Really, really appreciate that. And we're going to come back to you to talk a little bit about some of the examples of the work that you've done. But speaking of superintendents who want to talk to industry, we have here in Dr. Jenner, a leader of a whole state education system, who I think has been doing a ton on this work. And Dr. Jenner, you can say more about it, but you've been at the center of a push to fundamentally redesign how high school works and to rethink graduation requirements so that every Indiana graduate is ready for what comes after on day one. And I can only imagine the coalition you had to put together to sort of shepherd that effort through. Would love for you to tell us a little bit about that and what it's taken to keep that coalition together.
So I appreciated, you can tell I have a teacher voice. I always come in strong, loud. I appreciated what the mayor said. And the first step is we need all the key people, the key change agents at the table. That includes education, nonprofit, city leadership, philanthropy. And that is really the synergy that has allowed Indiana to move with a level of urgency that is exciting, quite frankly. And we're not only looking at our school data, but we're looking at our economic data, comparing the two, determining where is the common ground and the opportunity, and then let's drive that hardcore. So a couple common ground pieces in Indiana include our business and industry loudly, and it's been repeated all over this conference, is talking about skill development. Well, when you talk to teachers, educators, parents, they're also talking about skill development, prime common ground. The other is we have yet to find one person in Indiana who has said that the 4 years of high school is as valuable as it could be. So let's take those two common ground pieces and start driving forward. So in Indiana, one example of this, and I know we'll talk about a variety, but one that I'll elevate is we're not only looking at the asset map around our country and our states and learning from others, but we're really looking internationally. And one of the models that we've really started to study is the Switzerland apprenticeship model. And we are studying that to the extent that just this fall, as an example, we took 120, Fortune 500 CEOs, Fortune 100 CEOs, presidents of colleges and universities, the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, other key legislators, a number of other people, like the key change agents, K-12, right? The key change agents all went to Switzerland together to study their apprenticeship model, not to bring it back exactly Switzerland to Indiana, but to really understand how did they build this over a 30-year period so that their business and industry is driving this forward and really partnering with education in a way that they're not doing it for corporate social responsibility, which, by the way, is not going to work when we have an economic downturn. They're doing it because they see the return on investment when they invest in 11th and 12th grade students and start developing and working with schools to develop those skills and kind of really light that fire of purpose in what kids could do in their future. So that's one example. So we're looking at the data, finding the common ground, and we're not messing around. We're getting after it, and we're building.
I'm going to go work for
Please,
her.
yeah.
I'm going to go work for her.
I know I'm
not running
fired
for
up.
election, but thank you.
No, but her point,
Vote for you.
the Switzerland model, I'm glad you took your entire team to be exposed, because in 2018, we went to Germany to actually, we spent 8 days there examining their model around apprenticeships. We have to expose our high school students early, not when they finish high school. They have to, while in high school, they should be leaving high school early to receive high school credit hours for working. They need the exposure and opportunity before they ever finish if we want to create the pipeline to employers.
Awesome. So there's a theme here about learning from others. Obviously, we can learn within our country, but also outside of it. Some really interesting examples there. And so our last panelist, Corban, is talking about you lead a company in the very, very dynamic and fast-changing quantum industry. And at the same time, you signed up a little while ago to help found a coalition that is responsible for helping to build a $70 million tech hub for the state of Colorado. So you signed up to do that on top of a demanding job. I'd love to just hear a little bit about your motivation to do that. Why was that important to you?
Yeah, the motivation to do that is that quantum is so early in the journey that we can invest now to get things right in a way that'll last a century. So most folks in this room, I assume, are not familiar with what a quantum computer is. And that's fine. That's great. We don't need you to be familiar with it yet. But right now, every time you hear about something new in technology, AI, blockchain, the metaverse, all of those are different ways to use the same computers that we've been using for 70 years. They've been getting better, they've been getting faster, but they haven't fundamentally changed. Quantum computing is a reinvention of what the computer is. and it will fundamentally change civilization in as profound a way as anything we've ever done as a species. Up there with the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, the technology revolution, this will be the next big step. And the skills required for this are different. They're fundamentally different. The way you think about the world is fundamentally different. There are two laws of mechanics that govern the world. There's classical mechanics, where you throw a ball up, the ball comes back down. We're all kind of used to that one. And there's quantum mechanics that we don't have to think about day to day, but that is going to be absolutely essential to solving the most critical challenges, ending infectious disease, ending cancer, turning back the clock on climate change. These are things that will be enabled by quantum. Now, right now, we can make investments to make sure that the quantum future is inclusive and diverse and equitable. We can make investments to make sure that the quantum future happens here in the United States instead of in China or other nations that aren't so friendly to the United States. And if we don't make those investments today, others will. And so that's why when this opportunity came up through the CHIPS Act and working with the CFA to pursue this tech hub and make sure that the investment didn't go primarily to R1 institutions pursuing, funding PhDs, but instead it went to elementary schools and middle schools and high schools to make sure that this pipeline starts at the beginning, and that as the quantum industry begins to expand, we have opportunities to have on-ramps everywhere along that pipeline. Because yes, when you think about quantum, you'll think about a PhD at a whiteboard sitting there solving math equations. That's an important part of what this industry is. But my company, we're 80% folks who don't have advanced degrees. Welders, machinists, technicians, folks building the infrastructure for the quantum future. And I need the folks in Colorado's public school system and Colorado's private schools and Colorado's trade schools and community colleges. I need them to know that this industry exists, it's growing, and it's a great place to have high-paying jobs that have enormous opportunity looking forward. And so that's why I'm spending a big chunk of my time talking to teachers in order to train trainers and ultimately reach these students will be the foundation of this future.
It's amazing. So because as Dr. Jenner said, the ROI is there. The return on investment is absolutely there. So I'm thinking about what you said around this vision of how it's going to change everything. And then I'm thinking about, Mayor Deegan, what you said about awareness. And I'm just thinking about pick any given kid in a classroom, and how do you bridge the gap between this vision and then this idea of equitable awareness and then equitable access? Mayor Deegan, I wonder if you could speak more to that. Like, what are some of the things you've done and learned about doing that?
Well, listen, I'm excited just listening to this, because I have to admit, when I first read that you were going to be on this panel, I thought, I don't know anything about this quantum, So I started trying to research so I could have something. But what you just said, I think really touches on what we're talking about here. So we have, I think, in Jacksonville, 17,000 kids who are not, they're not thriving in traditional education, okay? And we're looking for ways to reach those kids. And if you look at all of this stuff, like you said, you don't have to understand it on that level, but what these kids need to know is there are pathways, and some of this new technology is going to create a way for you to excel and make a great living and do all those things you're passionate about, and you don't necessarily have to have a college degree to do that. And obviously, I am all for everybody getting as much education as they want to have, but ultimately, we just want people to be successful. But what I love about that is if we can through our partnerships with our philanthropies and our businesses and some of these programs that we've created to connect to these things that are available, I think it's going to be incredibly powerful for those kids who have not been interested in the normal pathway. Yeah. Because things like AI are going to change the equation on all that. You're going to have so many different ways to learn. And I think that that's our challenge and our opportunity going forward. But I think if we can reach those kids with that information, and we can, that's what we're doing right now with these partnerships. I think you may be able to pull in some of these kids that said, you know what, college is not for me, or I don't have the opportunity to go to college.
So two versions of a story that build on that, and these are both true stories. One with a employee we have right now. So we have an employee who she didn't finish college. She studied music a little bit, started a band, and then we hired her because she was working at an audio equipment store and she could solder well. And that's a test we gave her. We got her in-house, and she is phenomenal. She is incredibly thoughtful, organized, effective, and we've promoted her a couple times. And we asked her recently, do you want to go back to school and get a degree in engineering, because you clearly could. And she looked at me and said, do I have to? And I said, no, like you're great. You're here, you're thriving. You will continue to have a pathway here. You may have more options outside Maybell if you get the degree, but inside Maybell, you have a pathway here, right? And she's still here. I absolutely will encourage her to go get a good degree if she wants to, but until she does, I'm going to take full advantage of this brilliant, effective member of the team. There's a program in Colorado to train optics technicians. It's one of the first quantum technician programs in the country at Front Range Community College. And I was talking to the woman who leads that program, and she had a student who she was really excited about. He'd come in, Latino kid from Denver Public Schools, and he was super excited about quantum. And he went back and told his parents what he was doing. And for them, it felt like he was saying he wanted to, trade Bitcoin, something like that. It felt so foreign and so different that they dissuaded him from doing this. And he still went to Front Range, but he's working in their carpentry program, which is a shame for quantum, because he could have been phenomenal here. So your point about early awareness of these opportunities, early awareness of these pathways, it's so essential. And it's why conversations like this that bring together government, industry, the education infrastructure are essential to making sure that as we go into the future here, we have the workforce we need to thrive.
Mayor Woodfin, want to bring you on this and thinking about this question of kind of access and equitable access. I know that through the work with Community Funding Accelerator, you recently supported your city in an application for the Recompete program, which is a large-scale economic development initiative focused on historically underinvested communities. A lot of work, a lot of collaboration. What caused you to decide this is something to prioritize with my time and energy?
Yeah, so 3604 24th Street North is my address as a kid up until the age of 11. And when I was running for mayor, I went back to the community I grew up in. I saw with my own eyes how distressed it was, how underserved it was, how in this geographical landmass, you have a deficit of everything you can think of. And on top of the deficit of basic services for citizens, air quality is bad. Surrounded by train tracks. Considerable portion of this area of town is in a floodplain. And so every disadvantage you can think of existed in this footprint. So for us, it was a no-brainer that you still have families who live here. You still have seniors who live here. And you still have families with children that live here. And you still have elementary schools that are here. And so people deserve opportunity, and they need opportunity. And so applying for this grant was simple for us. It was people-centered. And to make sure that people live here not only not feel left out or continue to feel left out, but provide and create that opportunity. And if we get this grant, what I believe it does is provide the opportunity to create high-paying quality jobs for the folk who live right here. At the exact same time, there's a wraparound piece. These same people that will be working have families. And so you have this question of childcare. This question of transportation to get from point A to B, home to work, work to home, whether that is more bike lanes, whether that is other forms of transportation to make it efficient and improve quality of life for people. But the through line is, are we creating opportunity right here where people live. And we believe with this grant, the answer is yes. And so there's some team members here that are leading that effort. I don't take credit. I give them the credit. We're excited about the opportunity. We think our grant will be competitive against the others that are applying. But we have a compelling story to share and tell what this grant will allow and expand opportunity for people right in community of creating economic opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor. So I want to shift the discussion a little bit. You've all talked about the work, why it's important, why you're eager to do it. I do want to talk about the challenges. What makes this work hard? Like I said, I sort of started with that. And Dr. Jenner, I'd love to just start with you on this, just to say, what do you think has been the biggest challenge? And then what are some of the things you've seen that have been most effective in overcoming it?
So I have to be honest with you. I love a good challenge, and I love surrounding myself with problem solvers and not problem admirers. I usually help them out of the room. I will keep the solvers. So just, in K-12 alone, and I'm thinking back just a couple weeks ago, I was with some other state leaders in Palo Alto studying with the Carnegie Foundation what the future of high school could be. And one of the slides they put up was, the first was an 1897 transcript. You can imagine it was handwritten, the courses with the grades. Teacher had some notes. And then they put a 2022 transcript, typed. That was the only difference. And you think about how quickly the world around us has changed, and K-12 has not changed very much at all for over 100 years. We know that. We've been talking about it, but now we have to start doing something about it. And so in Indiana, we had not had a major restructure of our high school diplomas since the late 1980s. So we're undergoing it's a massive restructure, quite frankly, and a high level. We're in the midst, by the way, of 4 months of public feedback, and we will have these affirmed by December of this year. That's required by state law. But the gist is 9th and 10th grades focused on the foundation, but it's focused on not just the foundational knowledge, but the knowledge and the skills. And we've never really focused as K-12. Skills have always somewhat been at scale an afterthought. They're really hard to measure. And you certainly can't measure them by select A, B, C, D on a test. So our foundation being focused on the knowledge and the skills for all students includes courses, and it also includes competencies. Some of the competencies are outside of school learning. And what's happening when students are on teams, whether in the academics, the sports, the arts, that's where communication and collaboration is being developed, not just sitting in a classroom, which is also important. And then 11th and 12th grade is all about how do we light the fire of purpose for every unique student and really show their value and the possibilities for them. So the 11th and 12th grade is being developed based on their graduation plan. We're fortunate. We are number one in the nation. I'm saying this humbly. It's always awkward to say this. We're number one in the nation of in college credit. We have about 64% of our students earning college credit. The average leaves with 13.5 credits. When we ran the analysis, here's the economic connector. Thousands of students were within 1 in 3 classes of completing a market-driven credential of value, but they didn't even know it because we'd never built our schools focused on completing credentials of value. Now, some across our country are starting to. Now we just need to do it at scale. And rather than random active college credit, really help the student, if their unique path can allow for a completion in educational attainment, let's help them get that while in high school. It also helps affordability. And then again, the second piece that we're focused on in that 11th and 12th grade year, in addition to market-driven credentials of value, is quality work-based learning. And I led with the story about the apprenticeships, which is absolutely the creme de la creme model. However, we also have to have an on-ramp for schools to start somewhere. Because that we know from research that work-based learning experiences and getting students into those experiences absolutely benefits skill development. it also provides many of our students with a network of people that if not for that, they would never know. So it gives me cold chills to talk about, quite frankly, because we have Indiana folks in the room. It's all about the people who are leading on the ground. I'm just trying to clear the brush and surround with problem solvers.
Nick,
Can I just, go ahead.
this is fast.
No, go ahead.
Nick, the Birmingham delegation is going to draft this young lady. Keep going.
No, I was basically about to say the same thing, but I
Thanks
mean,
for calling me young.
I think what you're hearing is for all of this marvelous technology and everything else, what really builds the skills and the ability in these students to connect them to these things is relationships. It's allowing them to build the relationships that they need to be successful. And so many of these kids have not been exposed to that. So that to me is the exciting part. To be able to connect these kids with the relationships they need to be successful and to build the confidence that they need. Otherwise, they're not going to consider themselves as part of that equation. I mean, I think we probably all on here know of a ton of wonderful programs that we have that we think are great at we have a Mayor's Youth at Work program that has, we have a coding camp, and we have the ability to connect kids with our business leaders who may bring them in to connect to an industry that they're interested in or one that we'd like to grow. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to fundamentally relationship building. And we've got to take the time to do that.
I'll just add to what they both said. I think, Nick, the question centered around challenges. So I don't ever want to give a challenge without giving a solution as well. So I'll try to do both quickly. I think one of the challenges is counselors in high schools. I remember my high school counselor, I had to go to them. And, I feel like this many years later, counselors the model's still the same. Counselors as it relates to not the teacher, not the principal, not the parent, but literally guiding a young person on a simple question or questions. What is your interest? What is your passion? What do you want to do next? That conversation should not start the spring semester of your senior year. So what does that conversation look like earlier as a freshman? And going through, as she said, the actual plan, an individual plan for the young person. So that's a challenge, but I think the solution to that is not just the principals, but the superintendent saying we need to change our model of how our counselors engage students, not just when they become a senior. So that's one. Two, we have positioned ourselves or conditioned ourselves to believe every young person should go to college, a four-year institution. That's just not true, and we need to get away from that. Because if you're requiring an ACT, then you should at a minimum require some form of a trade for those who aren't going to a four-year. Either way, the young person is set up with an option of what to do next. So this alignment between career technical education and a two-year system, as well as a four-year institution option, there all need to be options, but if you're going to make one mandatory, you should make all mandatory. So every young person, the day after they walk across the stage, they have a plan when they walk out of those doors.
So we've heard from Dr. Jenner, from our two mayors, about kind of ways K-12 needs to change in order to meet the moment. I'd love to get your perspective on this too, Corban. What, from industry perspective, what does the quantum industry need from K-12 schools?
Yeah, so the challenge we face, I think, is different in many ways, because my first challenge is when we start the conversation with a school district, they don't know what quantum is, right? And I'm looking at this industry that today I employ a few dozen people. By the end of next year or year after, we'll employ a couple hundred. But it's very clear to me, based on the growth rate of this industry, that between me and my peers across the Colorado ecosystem, by 5-10 years from now, we're going to need between tens and hundreds of thousands of people with skills that don't exist right now, or employing skills that do exist to this new industry, right? And so walking into a room and saying, we need to, today, when Colorado's the largest quantum ecosystem in the country, and we've got 3,000 people working in the space, right? That is not a big number for any of you on this stage, but for quantum, that's the biggest we've got. Walking into a room and saying, we need to start shifting programming today to be ready for this quantum future is essential. Now, the saving grace, not a problem without a solution, is as we've sat down and talked to educators and leaders from K through 12 to community college, it is very clear that a huge amount of what they're already doing, you can throw a few extra words in and start to plant those seeds that will turn into quantum careers over the long run. And the thing that's really excited me about working with the K through 12, the school districts across the state of Colorado, is it is easier to get them. These are folks who are used to seeing the problems and seeing the potential of the students and helping them see this vision, understand this vision, and join in preparing students to embrace this vision. It's actually been one of the most successful things we've done at Elevate Quantum, and candidly, in large part, thanks to Delivery Associates. We've been able to get a whole bunch of educators and counselors and others involved in this industry at the very beginning, so that I think we will have a workforce that's ready for the quantum future.
Thank you. Well, so we're coming up to the end of our time. I want to have a last question for each of you, about 30 seconds apiece-ish, a sentence or two. But it goes back to where we started, with the audience that's in the room and the people they represent. So each of you have been on your own collaboration journey, and you've been successful. You've done some really important things to break through barriers. What advice would you go back and give your younger self starting off that journey, to your counterparts in the room who are trying to embark on similar journeys to create these collaborative ecosystems? So, Mayor Woodfin, maybe I can start with you. We can go down the line.
Younger self. Ambition needs to be balanced with purpose. And you can never get there alone. So at an early age, I would just simply say that the ideas you have, the passion you have, surrounding yourselves with other like-minded individuals gets you there faster. And being really keen on purpose, but having a clear vision. Within that vision, I would say you need a plan. But your plan doesn't work if you don't have people to actually help you with that plan. So collaboration early, team early, and communicating with folk and getting beyond differences to get to solutions. That's what I would say to my younger self and others that are younger.
Thank you. Mayor?
Yeah, just to build on, I think all those things extraordinarily important. I don't think there's anything more important than collaboration, but if I was going to speak to my younger self, I would say believe bigger sooner. I think everything is possible. Everything is possible when we collaborate and when we are intentional and we put a process together to make it happen. And I think that so often when we see these, look, there's a lot of challenges in K-12 education right now. I'm so grateful for all of you educators in the room. I know how difficult it is right now. I absolutely know that with collaboration, working together, we can solve these problems. We just may have to take a fresh sheet of paper and all sit down together and start over and find out where we are today.
Thank you.
I want to tell myself that it's going to be okay. Leaving the career I had before, I was a partner at the Boston Consulting Group, and things were going pretty well there. And that job was safe and it was interesting, but it didn't feel important. And leaving to found Maybell and be part of building the foundational layer of this industry that I think will be so transformative for civilization was terrifying. But seeing what we've been able to accomplish over the last 3 years, seeing the ecosystem that's become part of this journey has been incredibly rewarding and gratifying. So I'd just tell myself to calm down a little bit.
Thank you. Dr. Jenner?
This sign hangs on my office wall. It was gifted to me, so you can tell I'm in my head a lot. But it's don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. That delays so much progress in our communities and in our country because we wait, especially as an elected official, there's so much pressure. and in roles, public roles, right? And when you run a CEO company, there's so much pressure to get it right. But sometimes, you know, if we just go after the good and we're willing to learn from the mistakes and keep after it, that's even better. So don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. We've got to get started and get rolling.
Awesome. Well, so a few words I'm coming away with: the importance of awareness, the importance of letting people know, spreading opportunity, the importance of creating shared spaces for collaboration, of learning from others. And then you said it, Mayor Deegan, it's all about relationships, which is interesting because we're all about futurism here. We're about technology and innovation and all those things. It's very on brand for ASU+GSV. And yet, you all kept coming back to human factors, humans collaborating with humans to make this work happen. I'm reminded of a quote from a legendary environmental justice activist, Lois Gibbs. And she said, you know, if you think you can deliver transformative outcomes without collaborating, you should totally do that because it's a lot easier. And I think that we all are here, I think, because we know that in a lot of ways when it comes to outcomes, the low-hanging fruit's been picked, the non-collaborative stuff's been done. And what's left is the hard work that you all have been doing to really think about building up and forming these relationships and partnerships so that we can take things to the next level. So you've shared so much wisdom with us today. Audience, thank you for being here. Please join me in thanking our panelists.